free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Tatiana Sanchez. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Former nurse Lucy Letby has been found guilty of the murder of 7 babies. She was also convicted of the attempted murder of 6 others between June 2015 and June 2016 at the Countess of Chester Hospital's neonatal ward. The 33-year-old will be sentenced on Monday. The government has ordered an independent inquiry into the case. Crown Prosecutor Pascal Jones described Letby's attacks as a complete betrayal of the trust placed in her.
Little did those working alongside her know that there was a murderer in their midst. She did her utmost to conceal her crimes by varying the ways in which she repeatedly harmed babies in her care. She sought to deceive her colleagues and pass off the harm she caused as nothing more than a worsening of each baby's existing vulnerability.
Police investigating the murder of a 10-year-old in Woking say they're looking for her father. Sarah Sharif's body was found at her home last Thursday after police received a call from her dad just before 3 o'clock in the morning. Detectives say she suffered extensive injuries over a sustained period of time. They're now seeking Irfan Sharif along with the child's stepmother and uncle. It's believed they travelled to Pakistan the day before her death was discovered. Elsewhere, police have revealed they're investigating the loss of an officer's laptop and notebook which fell from a moving vehicle yesterday. Meanwhile, the PSNI have arrested a man in connection with last week's data breach in which the details of 10,000 police officers and staff were published online by mistake. A 50-year-old man has been detained under the Terrorism Act and is being questioned. Another man was arrested yesterday on suspicion of collecting information likely to be useful to terrorists. More than 25,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel since Rishi Sunak became the Prime Minister. The figure was reached just after midday today after the Border Force vessel Ranger arrived at Dover Harbour with 57 people on board. And despite poor weather conditions in the Channel today, a second migrant boat has made it to UK waters. It means more than 110 migrants have arrived in Kent today. And finally, Cornwall Council and Devon Cornwall Police will allow pubs and clubs across the county to open at 10 o'clock in the morning for the World Cup final this Sunday. The decision comes after Michael Gove wrote to councils across Britain requesting the earlier opening times for fans to go and watch the match. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly and Culture, Media and Sport Secretary Lucy Fraser will both be representing the country at that match against Spain. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by simply saying play GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, the best paper review show on the telly with 3 comedians going through tomorrow's newspapers. I'm one of them, I'm Leo Kearse, and I'm here with Headliners' answer to Torval and Dean. It's Cressida Wetton and Lewis Schaefer. How are you both doing?
All right, yeah.
Yeah, are you good on the ice?
I haven't been for years. Perhaps we should go and find out.
I don't like being called a comedian.
Right, okay, fair enough.
It's like too much. It's too much pressure.
Don't worry, Lewis. It doesn't happen that often. Anyway, let's have a look at those front pages. The Daily Mail leads with "They had 10 chances to stop her." That's referring to the terrible story about the nurse who could have been stopped. Apparently, the Times has "A cold, calculating killer." The Mirror asks, "How many more?" The Daily Telegraph has NHS ignored warnings that left nurse free to kill again. The Eye leads with worst child serial killer in modern history. The Daily Star has a slightly cheerier note. Lionesses win on penalties. And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, beginning with the Times, which obviously leads with today's big story, Cressida.
Yeah, exactly. A cold, calculating killer. So this is a story of the nurse, Lucy Letby, former nurse, who's been found guilty of murdering 7 babies. Those are the confirmed cases.
Yeah.
Police are going to look into 4,000 more baby deaths now. Because now, of course, they don't know who she affected and who she didn't. I mean, there's going to be an inquiry, but... it's going to be going on for a long time, isn't it, this?
Well, this is very similar to Harold Shipman.
Right.
Where, I mean, I don't know how many people, our audience remembers this, but, I mean, where this guy was he killed hundreds of people.
I think it was over 200 people.
I think he was even more than that.
To have killed.
Yeah, and they could have seen it just by looking at the statistics, the sort of the rise in deaths.
Well, part of the problem here is that she was working with very vulnerable babies who are far more likely to die than an average baby. They were already sick.
I mean, they're premature babies and sick babies. They're actually in a place where they're overwhelmingly likely to live. So it was unusual that so many babies died, and colleagues did raise the alarm. But unfortunately, they weren't listened to. In fact, the colleagues who raised the alarm were then forced to write letters of apology, which just points to serious failings in the service. Because I mean, as Lewis says, with statistics, with data, I mean, this would have been surely a huge and noticeable anomaly in the survival rate of these premature babies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that's shocking about the whole thing, I don't think it is shocking. I think when you have really big organizations, you've worked for big organizations. Yeah. I don't think I have, but with big organizations, things do fall through the cracks. And also, with an organization like the NHS, which does a lot of good work, I know I badmouth them every single second that I get, but they do a lot of good work. And this is such a black mark that they don't want to draw attention to it if it's not true.
Yeah. Well, and the NHS is almost like a national religion in the UK. Partly because we don't really have an alternative. So we put all our faith, all our trust in the NHS, which makes things like this even more, abhorrent and shocking to us than they would otherwise be. And it is the worst possible crime, killing these most vulnerable babies.
I think she's going to be one of these extremely famous serial killers forevermore, isn't she? It's just, and people have been talking today about the fact that it's a woman, and that's more shocking because we associate women with care. I mean, it's just, I feel for these parents so deeply.
Yeah.
It's just, well, it's evil, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, fun enough, I had a baby 10 months ago. Well, I didn't. My wife had a baby. Yeah. And, of course, this was in the news when she was going, I think it was the start of the trial or whatever. So, stupidly, I rushed home to my wife and I was like, oh, you won't believe what's happening. And then, she was in floods of tears. But yeah, obviously serious failings there. And a terrible, terrible story. Moving on, what have the Telegraph got in the front cover, Lewis?
Telegraph has the same story. I think all the papers have the same story. NHS ignored warnings that left nurse free to kill, as you mentioned, is that people went there, and one doctor went there and a couple of nurses, and they said, hey, we think something's up. And they were forced to apologize to her for making this accusation. Which is surreal, really.
Yeah. It reminds me of the grooming gang scandal when, social workers and teachers raised the alarm about these girls, and they were sent on diversity training or dismissed or held back from positions because they raised the alarm. And in big organisations, I mean, I've worked in some big organisations, and they don't like people who cause a fuss. They like people who just
and this is so anomalous, isn't it? It's such an unusual case. You can't blame people for, it's a hell of a thing to accuse somebody of.
Yeah.
But it happened.
Well, I don't know if it's that unusual, because in every kind of job, there are always the reverse of those jobs. Like with us being comedians, sometimes we're totally not funny. The most unfunny people in the world.
So people make mistakes.
Not just mistakes. There's a certain type of person that
I think you're saying that's a perfect environment for somebody who is evil to go and do their worst.
Someone who's the opposite of caring. Because so many people are caring. You go into the business of being a nurse and a hospital employee to care. That's the whole purpose of the whole thing. It's like with us. We go into the comedy thing. We want to make people laugh. And sometimes it goes so horribly wrong. Yeah. I don't know, I can't speak for you or you. I know with me, where people walk away and they think, oh my God, that was the most horrendous thing you made. You made that joke and people are crying and it was unintended, whatever. And I think it's the same way with nurses. They are caring people and sometimes people buckle under the pressure of caring.
Right.
Does this sound, am I sounding nice when I'm saying this? I don't want people to hate me.
I think that probably does happen, but I don't think that's what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, it seems bizarre because, you know, Rose West, Myra Hindley, they had terrible abuse in their lives. She apparently, you know, had a perfectly nice childhood and life growing up in Hereford. And, you know, there is no obvious reason, there's no, you know, record of a head trauma or anything, you know, the Jeffrey Dahmer thing that could, you know, steer someone or turn off their empathy. So yeah, it seems insane. The only time apparently in court that she showed empathy is when there was a doctor she fancied and he came in to give evidence and she broke down in tears because, you know, it was the doctor she fancied. So,
but isn't that the theory that didn't you say that?
I said that one of the elements I've heard on the news today is that she was having a relationship with somebody who was married and that one of the ways she could get close to him was by making a baby sicker.
Yeah.
And then he'd be involved in helping her.
Like a weird twisted Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah, like, and then they would either be bonded because they'd helped the baby together or if they lost the baby, they'd grieve together. It's just so horrible.
Blimey. And there's another story on there about the British Museum.
The British Museum is the guy who is in charge of the British Museum during the time that people were. That guy was stole millions of stuff from the British Museum.
Apparently it's a common thing in museums. Like other museum staff have come forward and said, listen, about half the stuff goes. Yeah. We don't know where it goes. You know, we sometimes see it on eBay or Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
But they are badly paid, aren't they? We've heard a lot about that.
No, but it doesn't even matter if they're not badly paid. These are people, they're human beings. I know, I've said this before. I know the Louis Schaefer story is like, which is basically, I think we're born, I think there's a human drive to steal office supplies.
I've got to be honest, any job I've had, I've regretted not stealing more stuff.
Yeah.
I worked in warehouses and everybody around about me was nicking loads of stuff and I didn't. And now, you know, all right, I might get into heaven. I don't want to get in heaven. I want 200 quid in 1998.
Yeah, you want to do it. And I think I think the problem is you've got a central organization which isn't owned by anybody. There isn't some rich guy there looking over, counting, you know, making notes of where everything is. It's so amorphous. You've got people who no one's watching. It's a huge museum. Anybody's been to a museum, you can imagine the warehouses of the thing.
Yeah.
And
maybe we should see what we can get away with as punters for this museum.
Look at his Twitter. His house is filled with GB merch. And I mean, maybe you bought it all. I don't know. Do you have receipts?
No, I did steal it. I did steal it. And you know what? I stole the girl's cup. I can't believe I'm talking about this. Whatever, I found. Somebody left a cup here that was...
To be fair, it wasn't a priceless Sumerian 12th century artifact.
No, but it was this poor... I didn't think anybody wanted it. I thought it was like
moving on, let's finish on the Star. And they've got the Lionesses winning on penalties. What's that all about, Lewis?
Well, this is the Lionels. This is the Lionesses, which is the British football team. I don't know why they're called Lionesses, because a female lion is called a lion, right? Or am I wrong?
A lioness.
Are they called lionesses?
That's why they're called the lionesses.
No, aren't the lions the ones without the furry thing on the thing?
Anyway, so they've won, or they've won on penalties.
No, what this is...
They haven't. The game hasn't.
They haven't. There was, according to the Star...
This is the worst segment I've ever done on
I know.
Listen,
it's not
really saying something.
It's not your fault. It's not our fault. Asparagus Psychic makes World Cup predictions, and it's bad news for England. She's some woman, and she makes predictions by letting asparaguses...
Well, I mean, it probably works better than that octopus. Anyway, that's it for part one. Stay tuned for part two, where we're going to do some research in the break. We'll have a government COVID expert getting a suspicious reward, a lottery millionaire in a bomb plot, and face masks are back.
Yeah.
See you in a couple of minutes.
I was kidding about...
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm still here with Cressida Wetton and Lewis Schaefer, and let's continue with the stories. We've got The Guardian, and Keir Starmer is in trouble over curry again, Cressida.
Almost. OK. Unite accuses Labour of currying favour with big business on workers' rights. So the union Unite are accusing Labour of sort of in a sneaky way slackening off their rules about workers. There were these plans to make new rules to distinguish properly self-employed people from workers, which I think is to do with all the Deliveroo stuff, right? Because there's people working for Deliveroo as if they're self-employed, but they're not really trying to tidy all that up. But Unite have come along and said, hang on a minute, we've read this in detail, and Unite think they're trying to curry favour with big business. Angela Rayner's denying this. She says they're still going to ban 0 hours contracts. Yeah, that's where we are. Keir Starmer's denying it all.
Lewis, I mean, does the government need to get involved in an agreement, a voluntary agreement between two people, like an agreement between an organisation and a worker? I don't see why, and so many Uber drivers have told me they hate the new rules where they don't get paid as much, but they get sick pay and all the rest of it, because they don't want to take sick days. They want to make more money.
They want to work. Well, like I say, what is this? This is centralisation. This is the government putting their hands into everything that we do. But this story in particular just reeks of Tony Blair. And and he's making a comeback. And what basically Starmer is doing is saying, I want to make sure 100% that the Tories are dead, even if I have to go out there and kick them in the head. And
his way of doing that is by being more of a Tory.
More of a Tory, not by making sure he knows he's got the left voting for him. He wants to make sure that the business community has no reason for having any objection.
Right, so they're going to be on board, just as Tony Blair did before he got elected. He made the Labour plausible by being, pro-growth, pro-finance, pro-business.
Everything. This is Tony Blair. When Cressida said, Tony Blair is back, he is black. It's Keir Starmer.
Conversation we had half an hour ago.
Yeah, he never went away. Anyway, the Times now, and a government expert who recommended that lots of taxpayer money be spent on vaccines has been rewarded with a job at a vaccine company.
Yes.
Is that how they pay commission now, Lewis?
Well, I just wanted, before we get started, I want the people to know this, and I want them to know that I support vaccines. I've taken vaccines, and that I am completely supporting vaccines. I haven't taken vaccines, but I want you to know that I support them. Anyway, this guy, Jonathan Van Tam, lands senior role as vaccine maker Moderna, which is an American company. It sounds Italian or something, but it's American. And this is the former deputy chief medical officer. He isn't as bad as Chris Whitty, but he's almost as bad.
Define bad.
Bad means this guy should be on trial for a Nuremberg-like thing.
In the interest of Ofcom impartiality, I should probably say he shouldn't necessarily be on trial for some sort of Nuremberg code violation.
What they did with the vaccines, what they did during COVID with lockdown, this guy was total supportive of. Maybe he believed in it, but still he needs to be brought to account.
But without getting into conspiracy theories or mentioning Nuremberg or any of these, dog whistles that can get us in trouble. I mean, he was on the government's advisory panel. He was saying, yes, we need vaccines. We've got to spend lots of money on vaccines. Then he immediately takes a job with a vaccine maker. I mean, surely that's a massive conflict of interest.
Yes. I mean, you've said it. I don't know how to take the other side on this. There's a 9-month gap between him clearing his desk and arriving at the new job.
Yeah.
And just reading the stuff here from Moderna, the company has called 2023 a transition year before it starts sales of potential new vaccines. It's like they've got a business strategy for when we're going to get ill next time.
For panicking.
It says in the event of, but they're ready with their safe and effective treatments.
And in fact, for a company that depends on another illness coming out, I mean, that worries me.
Right. Well, let me say this, and as everybody knows me, they know that I was kidding, and I didn't believe what I said at all. No, I don't believe what I said. We have to listen to our leaders. This is obviously a very good man. He's a university guy. He supports Boston. I was reading, he supports Boston's town.
I've been watching the
team.
Netflix show Painkiller, which is about the OxyContin epidemic in the States.
Yeah.
And they literally did the same thing. They got FDA officials, the regulatory body in the States, they got those officials to then come and work for, vastly enhanced salaries. For Purdue, the makers of OxyContin, and it led to all kinds of pain and misery in the population as they became addicted to these unnecessary medications. I'm not, drawing complete parallels.
I don't agree with you.
Moving on, we've got The Independent and some good news for people with bad chins who like smelling their own breath. Face masks are back, Cresta. Wow, it looks like we're going to make some money after all.
Who would have thought? New COVID wave has begun and masks should be worn again, scientists warn. So, listen to the science. Spread of new variant could cause extreme pressure on NHS. This all sounds so familiar. And cause more damaging long-term health problems, according to independent SAGE expert. That's great, isn't it?
And that's sage with a capital S. It's not just somebody who thinks he's a sage.
No, it's not. And this quote is just astonishing to me. This is a woman, she's from the University of Oxford, healthcare expert and also iSage member. She wrote on social media, "My various science WhatsApp groups are buzzing. I understand little of the detail, but it looks like, once again, it's time to mask up." It's like being in a club, isn't it? What's that?
Yeah. Some people don't want it to go. I mean, the key phrase in that sentence was, "I understand little of the detail."
That she writes this. I mean, the amazing thing is, one, masks not only do not work, they make people actually stupider. Okay? So you have people who are putting masks on who are stupid getting stupider.
You can smell a fart through a mask.
Yeah.
Why isn't that? Why isn't
They're
that?
not there to protect us from
How would you know that? You're a little
Surely
girl.
a fart molecule is the same as a... I mean,
I don't
I'm
think
not...
a fart molecule is the exact same. But a lot of the noxious smell in a fart is actually from the gas. So it's not a particle in suspension like a colloidal
but there's gaps at the
floating
side.
particle.
But here's the thing about this story, is that one, is that this could, maybe, possibly, whenever you hear that, you know that they're lying, because it's the word. It's camp. It hasn't happened yet. They want people to be afraid, and comes from somebody who's a scientist or an expert who works at Oxford University. Whenever you see someone who works at Oxford University, you know.
Yeah, they weren't good enough to get a job at the BBC? Yeah. Become a comedian? I mean, well, what's wrong with that? Anyway, moving on, we've got the Telegraph now, and at least one European country is helping cut the numbers of migrants coming into Britain. France could learn a lesson here, Lewis.
No, they can't learn a lesson, because this is something, I don't know what this is. There's no, Belgian you'll have to explain this to me, because Belgian crackdown cuts number of migrants headed to Britain to fewer than 1,000, because their migrants can go to France and then try to go to Britain, or they can go to Belgium or other countries. And there was 12,000 trying to go, and Belgium actually stops them. I don't know what is in it for Belgium to stop migrants who want to leave Belgium.
Well,
they have to
stop people drowning for a start. I mean, I would argue there's a moral case for that.
But there's also the fact here, which is interesting, because I've always thought the same thing. Like, what's the incentive for France to stop, the cross-channel migrants coming over here? It just means, they're going to be lumbered with them in France and have to house them in their own maybe Stockholm barges or whatever they've got there, French chateaux. But this has actually saved Belgium hassle, because once people know that they can't come through and then go on to Britain, they stop coming in the first place.
All right, brilliant. And maybe that's what, sadly, that's what this country needs to do. Once people realize
heading on to Iceland,
yeah, they'll go somewhere else. Yeah, but once immigrants who realize that they can come to this country, they'll stop. I don't know.
Yes, but the problem is they can come to this country.
They can, right.
So and the whole idea around the Rwanda plan and all the rest of it was to make it, just have it might be an expensive plan, but you only need to do it
to a few when they realise.
Short term, and then people realise that there's no point in coming. And it worked incredibly well in Australia, which has seen, illegal immigration drop. And it's legal immigration, safe routes have risen. So, yeah, it seems like a sensible position, but try convincing people on the left that.
Right, because they think that we're killing people by not letting as many people come in. I've used this analogy. If you're on one side of a road and you wave to someone to come to the other side, and that's a busy road, and they get hit by a car, that if you've waved them across, you are responsible for it. You might be called a murderer. And so
it's great. It's just that it makes migrants children in your analogy, but otherwise I love it.
Well,
That's a great comeback there, Lewis. Anyway, we've got the Mail now, and this businessman took the phrase "making a bomb in the city" a bit too literally. Cressida.
This story is amazing. Moment businessman who orchestrated bomb plot against lawyers for the NCA in £1.4 million row feigns shock as he is arrested in his sprawling £1.5 million manor before being convicted over the plan. Are you keeping up? It's quite complicated.
Yeah, but his wife won the lottery and there's some sort of fraud going on, laundering being suspected.
There's all sorts going on, and there's so many people in this story. I think they're going to sell the rights to this and make an amazing action film.
Yeah.
It'll be another 10-series Netflix thing.
I think it could be. I really think it could be. So this poor guy, the bit I like most is that they sent him I don't like it, but they sent him a pretend bomb. So this poor secretary gets in the post a smoking package, and inside it they put an electric toothbrush, turned it on, and so she's thinking, oh my God, this is
buzzing
it.
When it...
Yes. They made a cartoon Wallace and Gromit bomb. So that's...
This story reminds me of one of those old 1960s British black and white movies where there are so many people involved. Yeah. And there's no way that it can be kept a secret. It's just...
Yeah, and it's also the incentive for them to do this, because they're obviously already rich. He's a businessman. He's got a £1.5 million mansion. Then his wife wins the lottery, and then there's some sort of tax dodge. I read it and I still don't understand what was going on. They could have maybe written it in chronological order, but it was very difficult to follow. But it seemed completely unnecessary to send bomb threats and send.
It's not even to the guy. It's for what purpose? to get them to stop doing whatever, to stop investigating or something. I don't think that makes the police or the lawyers stop.
We're not in Russia.
Yeah.
You can't do that in Britain. You can't use fake bombs with vibrating toothbrushes inside them to scare people.
I've never seen a bomb, but I don't think it would look like that. I don't think I would know it was a bomb.
Smoking, buzzing. You know, they
The
arrive
arrest
quietly.
is amazing. You should watch the video of the arrest. He gets the rights read to him and what he's done wrong, and he goes, "What?" It's just perfect.
Anyway, that's it for part 2. Coming up, we've got racists plotting to cancel GB News, Snow White ruffling some feathers, and a homophobic general who doesn't know his Italian history. See you after the weather.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Overnight, storm Betty will bring lashings of wind and rain to the UK. In some places, gales, as well as in other places, thunderstorms. Betty was named by Met Erin, the Irish Met Service, because the strongest winds will be affecting Southern Ireland overnight, but also western parts of England, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales will see gales and in some places 60 or even 70 mile/hour wind gusts. The worst of the winds move through overnight, but there's also the risk of thunderstorms developing across the east of England and persistent rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland. So all in all, a lively night of weather and a warm night as well, staying fairly muggy. We start off Saturday with the wet and windy weather moving through Irish Sea coasts, Northern Ireland as well as Scotland. The most persistent rain arrives into the north of Scotland, but we'll continue to see further spells of wet weather for the rest of Scotland, Northern Ireland and northwest England. Across the rest of England and Wales, it brightens up. There'll be some showers, but also some decent sunshine. And in the southeast, 26 Celsius. It's going to stay relatively humid. Sunday, all in all, is a brighter day, particularly for northern areas. Again, a mix of sunny spells and showers. Still a brisk breeze from the southwest, but that's going to be bringing once more some higher temperatures at times. So mid-20s possible in the southeast, turning even warmer in the south through next week, staying changeable in the north.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in
prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. The Express has fresh evidence that the people campaigning to shut down GB News are racist anti-Semites. They're always the thing they accuse people of, Lewis.
Yes, well, we're not sure about that. Shocking new racism allegations emerged about lefty campaigners linked to defunding GB News. And it said basically that the Stop Funding Hate people who are trying to close us down, right? They're linked to BDS people, which is Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, which is like an anti-Semitic group, which is linked to the Ethical Consumer website, which says the Israeli police are oppressors and they're all connected. The Israeli, which is basically perceived as being anti-Semitic.
Yeah, and it's they say that, for example, the policeman who killed George Floyd, they say, or his death was trained in Israeli killer techniques. I mean, that's a kind of anti-Semitic thing.
But
to say that these policing techniques have spread around the world and from Israel. I mean, I don't think restraining felons is a particularly Israeli thing.
No, but is it that Stop Funding Hate group? I don't like these people because they're trying to put this channel out of business.
And previously, there was another member of Stop Funding Hate. I can't remember her name, Amanda something, and she had retweeted things on saying "from the river to the sea," which is a long-standing call, a clarion call for the extermination of Jews in Israel. It's saying, to wipe them out from the river to the sea, which is absolutely disgusting and abhorrent. And for somebody like that to say, oh, we need to stop funding GB News because they have a range of opinions, is absolutely ridiculous.
Before Cressida says something, I am totally against anti-Semitism, obviously. I'm in favor of GB News. But I think there's probably a lot of people in Stop Funding Hate who are filled with hate.
Yeah. It's like Bukowski said, those who preach love are the people who hate the most, or something. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, it feels like they'll just come for us regardless, doesn't it?
That's a bit defeatist.
Well, I don't feel defeated. I feel like Paul said last night, we're the punk team. I don't know.
Well, the Sex Pistols, they didn't have a long career, but they had an incredibly successful career.
You don't think we're going to be here long, Leo?
No, I do think we're going to be here long.
Well, do you know what? Do you know what? One of us needs to go into a rant about screw those. Stop. Hey, it's like what Francis Foster did the other night when he was on the show. He just full on. I hate. Me, I'm taking a too balanced approach. The fact is that GB News is an amazing thing, and I mean, not just because it's given me a chance to work.
But mainly. We've got the Daily Mail now with an explanation for Britain's surging knife crime. It's basically been decriminalised, Cressida.
More than a third of repeat knife offenders are avoiding prison due to courts' increasing tolerance. So even if you're a repeat offender, you still, there's a third, over a third, 37%, even on a second offence, won't go and do any jail time.
That's insane. So you're caught with a knife on you, just walking around?
Twice.
It's not like it's the first time.
You've got previous. So, it's going up. We all know knife crime's going up, but we're getting more tolerant of it. It feels like everyone's just getting worn down and as if there's so much of it.
Whittled. It's like... I think we're being whittled down.
Being Chris Whittled down.
Horrible.
I would say that it's shocking. One thing about that I love about this country is the chaos is when I moved here, I thought I was...
caused most of it.
I know they invited me in because they wanted chaos. I'm doing you guys a favor by being here. But people expect Britain to be at least Americans do, being very organized. You follow the rules. Everybody follows the rules. They wait in the bus queue. But here, there was a law in 2015 that said if you've got 2 prior offenses on a second knife offense, you must be imprisoned.
Yeah.
And 37% don't get in prison.
Yeah, a huge proportion. So it shows it's not a deterrent, and that's why knife crime is surging. Moving on, we've got the Times now, and I'm shocked to learn that an Italian general doesn't have the same liberal attitudes as a 19-year-old gender studies graduate.
Yeah, this is one of those stories. I don't even think it's a story because it's just one guy, one old guy. He's 54, not that old. He's younger than I am, 54. But he said that gay adoption is like cannibalism, says, well, according to the headline of the Times, I couldn't find out what he actually meant by that, says Italian General Roberto Vannacci. And he basically said that, plus he said a lot of other not so nice things about gay people, about immigrants, about black people. Even I would say, send this guy a memo.
Well, he's been sent more than a memo.
Yeah.
He's been sent a P45. He's no longer going to be in the army.
That's it. He's not just some guy, is he? I mean, he's a figure that people will look up to, don't you think?
Are you asking me to defend the guy? Now I got to defend the guy. People don't. I don't want.
Well, Cressida, do you think if there is a war, they'll suddenly be like, well, actually, we don't care. We don't mind your views anymore. Can you come and help us fight this war?
This is very true, isn't it? Yes. We can't rid the world of toxic masculinity, which isn't a phrase I would use. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point as well. It's not a book that I would... Someone has described his book as personal ravings.
Yeah.
Well, it does sound... The way they recount it here, it sounds like personal ravings. And also, it's not entirely accurate because he's talking about, the ancestors, the tradition in Italy of there being no homosexuality, whereas Julius Caesar, for example, was famously bisexual.
And of course, if you look at Michelangelo's David and you think, delicious.
Moving on, we've got the Mail now with the news that paying to own one corner of your home isn't the answer to the housing crisis, Cressida.
Shared ownership is dubious, warns charity, as Parliamentary Committee investigates the home buying scheme. That's the right word, isn't it? Scheme. I hate this stuff. I look at it all the time because I'm trying to buy. I've lived on a boat for 5 years to save a deposit for a flat. That's how much I've avoided doing this.
Right.
I've lived without a proper fridge for 5 years.
You've got 5 years' worth of money.
Something like that. The point is, I've looked at this a lot, and you have to. First of all, you only get the corner, so you own like a cupboard or something.
Yeah. Like 20%. You own 20% of the flat.
Ridiculous.
And you're still paying rent and leasehold and service charges and all that kind of stuff to the property company.
And it's so tempting because these properties are all new and shiny and it looks like everything works. Who knows if it does? But you have to pay this enormous sum of rent back to the developer. They decide how much the property's worth.
Yeah.
I think it's awful. And I'm thrilled that this is being looked into. Whether it will lead to any reductions, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we need more houses, not more schemes.
No, we don't need more houses.
We've got the Telegraph, and not everyone's happy about Disney's Snow White remake.
Yes, my dad and Walt Disney would be turning in their graves over woke Snow White remake. So this is this guy, David Hand, whose father in 1937 was the guy who originated the original Snow White.
He was
the director with Walt Disney. And he says that the studio is trying to destroy their creation. And they don't even know yet because they haven't even seen it. It's just based entirely on what this Rachel Zegler, who's the star, was gorgeous, really. She's like, I don't know if I think she's half Jewish or something.
She's half Polish and half Hispanic.
And half Spanish.
So it's not going to be Snow White. It's going to be slightly off-white.
Yeah, but she's like so beautiful, and she's made some comments, which is that women can have career in love, and you shouldn't be waiting for you.
She's down on the love.
She's
she
down.
Thinks love is weird. I find her highly irritating.
And stalking.
Is it stalking? I mean, yeah. It's like human history's evolved wrong, but Zegler knows how it should have happened.
Yeah, can you have both, though?
TBC.
And she's also made comments about Prince Charming as well. She's not happy about Prince Charming. I mean, she sounds like she was in the wrong film, to be honest.
Yeah.
She'd have been in, some super woke indie movie or something instead of the remake of a much-loved classic?
No, because I know how these movies are made, because I'm in many, many movies.
Of course.
Many movies. And they sit around, everybody is discussing what the movie is about while you're doing the movie.
Also, they don't know what the movie is, how the movie's going to end or how it goes.
They don't know, but they know the movie that they're making that they can see other people making. It's like the movie, the Maestro movie that I was in with the Leonard Bernstein one, which was all about the idea that a man can cheat on his wife in a gay relationship, and his wife will still love him and let him do it.
Was that not about Philip Schofield?
Well, in a way, it's exactly like that. Yes.
Okay, well, that's it for part 3. Coming up in our final section, we've got dog flaps, lion heads, and other dangerous TikTok challenges. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. The Telegraph looks back at the first ever Lonely Planet guidebook written 5 decades ago, but it contains careers advice that's more relevant than ever, Cressida.
Sell your blood or become an escort. Bizarre advice from the first Lonely Planet written 50 years ago. How good is that? This is full of crazy things like hitchhike across Syria, which you could then,
well,
apparently.
You could then, yeah. It was probably quite westernised.
I don't know, maybe...
Some you see photos from Afghanistan and Iran in the 70s before they became, you know, the Islamic theocracies.
This is full of crazy stuff. So some advice. If you're in Singapore, chicks can pick up easy money working for the escort services. They're quite respectable.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
They've got good antibiotics.
I guess they do. Did you do any backpacking, Lewis?
I did a tremendous amount of backpacking back in the day. I hitchhiked.
You could work as an escort.
Well, do you know what? I felt like some of the guys were interested in me, but I wasn't at that stage in my life yet. I was really a good-looking young boy, but everybody's good-looking at that age. I did. It was a different.
Still are, Lewis.
It was a different time back then. I hitchhiked across Europe. I took an interrail pass across Europe. I went maybe because I lived a privileged background. Because I'm a Jew. You know what? They were glory years for America and the Jews, and now I'm living. In the 60s and 70s. Really? This was the 1970s. Yeah, they were glory times. And now it's not that good.
OK, well, moving on, we've got the Express. And in the latest sign of this nation's moral decline, parents are bullying children to get social media views, Lewis.
Yes, and this is outrage over TikTok, quote-unquote, egg challenge, where parents crack eggs on crying toddlers' heads. I didn't see it, but it sounds funny. And
it sounds like dangerous.
It doesn't sound to crack an egg on a kid's head. The kid probably doesn't even know. It's just
the kid's crying. That's the point.
The kids, you understand? He's got a kid, they just cry.
Yeah, there's no way I'd do this to my kid. Like, they don't have, the head isn't...
Yeah, soft head.
Made into a skull.
No, they do have a hole in it. Well, maybe if you hit it over here, it can be a bit hard. And
I'm not in favour.
But I think this is just an attack on TikTok. They're trying to point out all of the bad things about TikTok so the Ofcom can go in and regulate them and maybe shut them down, and there'll be more state control.
But we've seen some crazy TikTok challenges. I mean, there's one recently where kids were encouraging each other to take paracetamol to see who could stay in hospital the longest.
Isn't that bizarre?
Which is just absolutely insane.
Well, that's a criminal offence. And I don't think you should blame the channel, just like me. You can't blame the channel for me. I'm on a platform, I'm talking. You can't blame.
This reminds me of that Tango advert where they smacked the heads, and then everybody was doing it in the playground and getting burst eardrums.
Oh, really? I don't remember that.
Hear anything. We've got the Mirror, and do-gooders are trying to ban hunting, but it could do bad, Lewis.
Is this me? Oh, yeah.
Cressida. Sorry, I had Lewis in this.
I can talk about it, but...
Go on, you
No, you don't. You talk about it.
They're so polite. Anger as trophy hunting law change at risk of being scrapped by peers. So... a long-awaited ban on trophy hunting is going to get derailed, and you might think, oh, that's really terrible, but I've got a friend who works in wildlife. You probably know him, Ryan Dalton, Into the Wild podcast, used to be a comic, and he reckons it's a good thing to have controlled trophy hunting because it's regulated then.
And it supports the ecosystem.
Yeah,
they maintain these vast tracts of African countrysides and the lions and things can live there.
So it's surprisingly more complicated than you might think.
Well, do you want to know something? I'm not surprised by that. I think, and you know what, I want to give Cressida a round of applause for a girl. That was quite amazing.
What?
Just adding that to the HR file.
That was too much.
We better move on. We've got the Telegraph now.
Sorry, Cressida.
There's been a rise. Can you stop? There's been a rise in the number of people getting dog flaps, also known as labiaplasty.
Oh, boo, boo. Rise in dog flaps could leave homeowners uninsured. This is another one of those coulda, woulda, possible. I call it camp, could, maybe, possible stories. Basically, they're saying if you've got a big enough dog flap in your house and you get robbed because someone climbs in through your dog flap, that you cannot claim the insurance money.
It's a door, isn't it? When does a flap become a door?
Yeah, exactly.
Cats are so universally sized. Dogs not so much.
Yeah, you can't generally shove a child. If you're from a criminal family, I'm not going to say what demographic they're from, but if you're from a criminal family and you want to shove a small child through a hole in a house, then you get in there and open the door so you can get in there and nick stuff. They can't generally get through a cat flap because cats are small.
No, but
if you've got a Great Dane with some big barn door dog flap on it, then you can just walk in. Won't even need to bend over.
But they said they haven't even had a case of that happening yet. And they don't even know, according to this article, which is in the vaunted Telegraph, they haven't even checked whether that would actually affect someone's insurance. So this is a non-story.
I think it's a real story. Anyway, really quickly, let's look at the Metro with the shocking news that magic mushrooms can help you hallucinate, Cresta.
Woman who couldn't dream for 34 years has life transformed by mushrooms. And yeah, it's exactly what you said. Apparently, psilocybin can help you dream. How
Wow.
cool is that?
Yeah, well...
I thought it helped you do your account. Shows how wrong I am.
Well, we don't know what she dreamed about. Maybe that's true as well. Two things can be true at once.
Well, it's just one person's story. This is not much. There's not much to this story either. It's just one person said I wasn't dreaming.
Well, it's good that it's not much of a story because we've finished the show. So let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with, they had 10 chances to stop her. That's the killer nurse there. The Times also has a cold, calculating killer. The Mirror asks, how many more? And the Daily Telegraph says, NHS ignored the warnings that left nurse free to kill again. The Eye has worst child serial killer in modern history. And the Daily Star has Lionesses win on penalties. And those were your front pages. And that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Cressida Wetton and Lewis Schaefer. We're back tomorrow at 11 p.m. when Nick Dixon will be joined by Victor Daniels and Paul Cox. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Thanks for listening. I've been Leo Kearse. Good night.
I'm sorry, Chris.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Overnight, storm Betty will bring lashings of wind and rain to the UK. In some places, gales, as well as in other places, thunderstorms. Betty was named by Met Erin, the Irish Met Service, because the strongest winds will be affecting Southern Ireland overnight, but also western parts of England, southwest Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales will see gales and in some places 60 or even 70 mile/hour wind gusts. The worst of the winds move through overnight, but there's also the risk of thunderstorms developing across the east of England and persistent rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland. So all in all, a lively night of weather and a warm night as well, staying fairly muggy. We start off Saturday with the wet and windy weather moving through Irish Sea coasts, Northern Ireland as well as Scotland. The most persistent rain arrives into the north of Scotland, but we'll continue to see further spells of wet weather for the rest of Scotland, Northern Ireland and northwest England. Across the rest of England and Wales, it brightens up. There'll be some showers, but also some decent sunshine. And in the southeast, 26 Celsius, it's going to stay relatively humid. Sunday, all in all, is a brighter day, particularly for northern areas. Again, a mix of sunny spells and showers. Still a brisk breeze from the southwest, but that's going to be bringing once more some higher temperatures at times. So mid-20s possible in the southeast, turning even warmer in the south through next week, staying changeable in the north.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here